Hi everyone, so I'm going to talk to you about price objection today. It's one of those objections that we've probably all faced at some point and probably will do in the future. It is one of the, most dreaded objections to get. And recently a follower had asked me, how do you deal with someone who's telling you that they like everything about your offering and everything that you've told them, but then they say it's just too expensive? And it's not the first time I've been asked that question, so I thought, okay, it might be a good idea for me to just put out a little video about how I think I deal with those kinds of objections and how I feel that it might help you to deal with them going forward. So I guess the first thing that you have to do is really understand what the customer means when they say it's too expensive. Don't just assume that what they're telling you is that they want you to drop the price. I guess this is, one of the single biggest mistakes that you can make if you just drop your price straight away as soon as you hear that. Instead, you should delve into a little bit more and think about what do they really mean. I'll give you some examples. It could be that they mean that they just don't see the value in what you're offering to them. And when I say value, I mean value to them. Maybe they just haven't made that connection, in other words. It could be that they can't see the tangible return that they're going to get. Sometimes an offering isn't always easy to put a tangible return into words for someone. Could be that they just don't believe that if they did challenge you, that you're actually going to stick to your guns. Maybe they think, you've dropped the price before. I'm sure they'll drop the price on this as well. Or it could be that they actually don't really need that offering as much as they thought. Perhaps they've met with you because they're an existing customer and they just thought, well, it would be polite to meet with you. Perhaps that real compelling reason just hasn't come up. It could also be that they just hadn't realized how much that kind of offering or your kind of offering actually does cost. Perhaps they haven't looked into it before, so they haven't really set aside enough budget for it. I'm sure we've all done this. I mean, think about if you've ever had to get an extension or something, but you never looked into it and you just put aside, £5,000 because you saw it on the television. And when it comes to your property, to get that same extension, it's going to cost twice that. And these things happen. The other thing is that it could be that they're just worried about the disruption or that change or that implementation of your product could actually cause to them. So thinking about it that way, now let's explore how you can possibly eliminate any of the above, because you can. I do say, and I am going to say, for each of those, a little bit about how you might have pre-eliminated that objection before even getting to that point of negotiation. Could be that you just missed something, and it's very easily done. We've all done it. But I will also give you a way or a means of getting out of it with some questions on how you can handle it should you be at that point where actually you can't get out of it. Now, you couldn't go back. You are in that situation. You isn't there in the situation, face to face of negotiation. How do I deal with it? So let's go with the first one that I said. Perhaps it's value. Perhaps they thought there wasn't value in it. So we all know value is personal. And if you hadn't already explored deeply enough with the customer as to what is valuable to them, then you could very well find yourself in this situation. I always say, when you're in the sales process, it is really, really good to just ask them during that discussion straight up, out of this offering, what would you find most valuable? And when you ask a question like that early on in a discussion, it's something you can then refer back to should they ever should they ever complain about the price. What do you value the most out of this deal if we went ahead? All right, put the ball in their court on value and make them own it. So if, however, you are in that situation where you're in negotiation and that has come up, then this is how I would deal with it. First of all, establish how much they would actually pay for that particular product or offering. Once you've got that, then ask them, okay, so then which part of what I'm offering will you be willing not to have in order for me to reduce the price to that? Yeah? So you're kind of saying, therefore, you know, you can't just drop the price for nothing. That's what you're saying. You're saying there's value in my offering, but if you want to reduce some of that value, I can reduce the price. All right. And then lastly, you can ask them what they might offer in return to make it worth your while. So if you've done your preparation, your homework, then you might know that actually you could really do with getting an extra length on the contract, perhaps extra term. Maybe upfront payment is actually quite valuable to you. So only agree to close on something on an exchange like that if both parties are getting a like for like trade. All right, otherwise it doesn't kind of work. So those are the kind of things that I would do if value was the reason that somebody is saying that your offering is too expensive. Okay, so number two, the second reason I said they could be saying it's expensive is because sometimes they can't quite see the return on investment in tangible formats. You know, there are some offerings where you can show tables, charts, and actually spell out what a person would get in return for their investment. But it doesn't always work as straightforward for many offerings, such as training for me is not that straightforward. So you have to kind of try and make sure you tie everything that you can do or you can offer within the solution back to the bottom line or during the sales discussion. Just be sure to have discussions such as, okay, so what do you think this would mean for your bottom line? And once again, get them to own it a little bit. You know, get them to own that value, that return on investment, that they can see that return on investment. That's the important thing. Not that you can point it out to them, but they can see it themselves and they can identify it. Now again, however, you might be in a negotiation situation, in which case this is how I would personally deal with it. So the first thing I'd do is establish what they want to see as a return on this kind of investment. So what return are you actually looking for? Secondly, ask them to say what they initially thought they would get from your offering. You know, what was the reason they're actually talking to you right now? So why did they invite you to speak? Why are they even interested in talking about this? So there must have been a reason. What did they think they were going to get as a return? Ask them that. And thirdly, you could ask them what level of risk would they be taking if they didn't invest in your offering? What is the risk of you not investing in what I have? Obviously, you put it in your own words. Okay, the third one we talked about was the fact that sometimes a buyer will negotiate just for the sake of it, especially if that buyer is in procurement. Their job is simply to reduce the price, and you get procurement in the large corporations, and that's what they're sent in to do. I've often been across the table from someone who has that kind of position and has said something to me like, look, I like what you offer, but my job is to reduce the price. So give me something, anything. And then I'll usually just say, you know, follow that up with something like, well, how much will get me the deal now? And then I might say, okay, so as we're going to really be working together on this, it sounds fair, therefore, that we trade. So I'll give you what you need, but only if you can get me. And then again, you know, give a like for like trade value to them. Give them something for something. Never just drop the price because you think you'll get the deal. All right. They are fully prepared to give you something in return. They will have already done their homework on what they are able to concede or trade. So don't be shy of asking for something in return. You've got to do that. Okay, so the other reason that they might have said it's expensive is perhaps they just don't really need it right now. So, and unless, you know, you're really selling something that is relatively low cost, then most customers will only part with big money when they have a real compelling reason to do so. If they contacted you, then it's really important that you were able to establish during your sales discussion why they actually contacted you in the first place. What's the reason? What's driving that discussion? I always say that. So what drives us to this position right now? What's the bigger picture? You know, because when you ask them what's the bigger picture, you kind of are able to put the jigsaw pieces in place and find out what the real compelling reason is. Sometimes it could be something like, well, the competitor is stealing their business with their new high-tech order software, and perhaps they need some order software, or maybe the competitor's fast delivery service means a lot of the customers are going else to them. So for me, I think with the compelling reason, they just don't really need it right now. This is actually something you could have pre-eliminated before you even sat down with them to talk about it. So the first thing could have been on your qualifying questions. That would have been step one. And that would have been way back when you were making that first initial exploratory phone call or cold call, whatever you want to call it, or lead generation call. The second opportunity for you to pre-eliminate that one would have been when you were sat down having a sales discussion saying, well, again, you know, what is the real reason behind this? Why do you really need this? And if you do, how many people is it going to impact if you didn't have it? So again, it's just putting the ball into their court a little bit and getting them to tell you how important it is. Because when they tell you how important it is, it becomes important. It becomes a compelling reason. The other one that we said might be the reason why somebody's saying it's expensive is the budget. Perhaps they hadn't really realized how much it is. So realistically, this is precisely why I always say you should determine the budget early on in your sales discussion. Now, if you don't do that, then you're really never going to know whether you're wasting your time or not. Because if you're completely out of the ballpark for what they can actually afford, then you could have just wasted a lot of time for both you and them, actually. If, however, you know that you're kind of in the ballpark, okay, then it's worth pursuing and building on the value. And if you are in the ballpark and we're sitting at this point in negotiation, then this is what I would say. Find out, first of all, how they initially determined the budget for this. Was it based on previous suppliers or something else? Secondly, if it was based on a previous purchase they made which is similar, then are they simply looking to downgrade, i.e. reduce the price by downgrading, or are they wanting to upgrade the service? And then lastly, what I might say to them is, why are they actually moving away from their comfortable price zone then that they already had, if that was the case? If they've used other methods to determine budget, then they may have a contingency or leeway, and if so, how much have they got? Because nobody really determines a budget, a precise budget, without knowing everything about how much they're going to pay or they've had a previous supplier. Okay, so the last one, disruption. In this case, you've really got to just simply offer a way to make that implementation easier through a concession that you're able to give away, such as your time. All right, I'm not saying your time is invaluable, of course it is. But how much of your time you give is up to you. But personally, I say up until a certain point in implementation, you can give them help, guidance and support. Perhaps even a direct line to one of the people in the office in your support team. You could have that discussion with them, the support team managers, and just say, look, can we figure out a way of giving somebody some support up until implementation is complete? And you have to put a date on that though, because resource is not cheap, nor is your time, as I've already said. And by doing that, really what you're doing is you're just potentially taking away any or pain points that they might have that don't exist or that they might fear. So just make sure exactly what disruption they fear before trying to offer anything, because it could be that you offer so much that you end up pulling your pants down and actually none of that helps them anyway. So just make sure you know what support they need before you start giving away resource. Okay, that's it from me for that particular objection. If you have any more that you would like to talk to me about or have help from me with, then please feel free to email me on shea@wisemeup.co.uk. Also remember, if you want some one-to-one private coaching or you think your company can benefit from some group or remote training, then give me a shout. I'm always here, I'm always available, I'm always happy to help. Once again, thank you to those who have subscribed. If you haven't, please share this if you think anybody else will benefit from it. Take care, speak soon.